Hello and welcome to day 3 of the EUS Challenger Series number 19 with Gamers2 and TheFoxSound facing each other down in the grand finals. I am Pulse, I am joined by Stress. How's it going, man?
It's good, it's good. I'm just fingers crossed, everything crossed that the spectator server is working today. We have had a couple of little issues, but this is our grand finals. It's a best of 5, which means we've got 5 attempts to bring you games, potentially.
It's a bold move, but we're going to go for it, and Elise, Renex and Pantheon, Casters and Kha'Zix will be the first couple bands out.
Nothing overly surprising there. I am on the stream, so I'm a little bit behind. Hasn't yet appeared for me either, so I'm trying to remember. You said at least Kassadin...
Renex and Kha'Zix, Pantheon, and Fresh.
Cool. I'd remembered about 3 of them when I said nothing surprising, but thankfully there is nothing surprising there. So, you know,
all the way through the bands, yeah.
Exactly. No Zillion ban, which we saw the other day actually. From Dude was playing Zillion, had that banned out in the semi-finals and actually in the round of 8. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Zillion here either.
First pickup will be that Gragas, coming in for the TheFoxSound. Gragas is just a very consistent mid laner, will face down most mid laners fairly well, doesn't really have any counter picks, has some difficult matchups, but overall was very reliable.
And it looks like Yuki is not available for this game either. Yuki is still on the team, but it looks like the manager for Gamers2 is actually going to be stepping in the AD carry role, and actually performed fairly well yesterday, if I have to be honest.
He did very well indeed. His Vayne play was pretty exceptional and it got them to the grand final, so apparently it worked and he is a very competent player himself. JWoww is currently hovering over Leona, 3 seconds left, and to seeing what Morden picks up. That's going to be Lee Sin.
Yeah, we saw Morden have Lee Sin banned out against him yesterday, so this time we'll get to see his Lee Sin in action. And what was the other lock-in? Have we had that yet?
We had Leona and Lee Sin, and now we're waiting for the 2 pickups from TheFoxSound.
Okay, so Leona is a pick that we've seen a lot recently in the meta, especially when Thresh is banned out, because Leona is so good at engaging and pretty much counter-engaging as well, when you can lock down that bottom lane, skirmish a lot, get the fights, and it allows you to get a lot of dragon control if you can pick up one of the early kills by using Leona's massive amounts of CC in her kit.
Draven picked up alongside Alistair for that bot lane, so we already know what that bot lane is going to be from the TheFoxSound, and already very aggressive.
Speaking of counter-engage, there's some counter-engage for you with Alistair, and Draven as well is going to have a significant amount of damage and gold generation, but Alistair against Leona, when Leona Zenith Blades in, Pulverize goes down, Leona isn't able to get off the second part of the stun, and it can end up saving your AD carry pretty handily there.
Pulverize goes down, Leona goes up, and then Leona dies. And also Draven's stand aside can interrupt Zenith Blade, so the lane is just counter Leona, and they're doing that just against the support, so they basically put Leona out of there, because no matter who she goes for in that bot lane, it's not going to work out. Lucian is a very common AD carry to go alongside that. 10 seconds left, and looking to see what Ocelot brings into the mix for Gamers2.
I was going to say Lucian or Caitlyn would be what I'd expect here. Caitlyn for a little bit more passive lane now that they've got the counter engage, but Lucian will allow them to trade pretty well as well in that lane. So has Ocelot locked in a mid or top laner here? Yeah,
he's locked in Lulu, and Lulu has seen a lot of play recently.
Yeah, has seen a significant amount of play in LCS, and also started being played over in Korea. It drifted over. Players like Alex Each started bringing it back, well, bringing it into the meta. And I say back because some of us have seen Zamfira play Lulu in a little bit of a different style over in North America for years. So, you know, Lulu in this capacity doesn't really have particularly many bad matchups, if any at all. And I think is actually a significant pickup here. It's going to give them survivability in team fights where they won't get that from the support. Leona will lock down in team fights, but now Lulu offers Lucian some more survivability in the mid game.
We've seen the limitations of Lulu, where if the rest of the game and the rest of the lanes aren't going well, then she doesn't really do anything either. She makes sure that if the team picks up an advantage, they keep that advantage by basically being unkillable. But if Lulu is the only person doing well, for example, if another mid laner like Gragas was doing well, he could potentially carry the team, but Lulu doesn't appear to have that capability. However, the last 2 picks have come in for the TheFoxSound. That'll be Vi and Rumble in the top lane.
Ooh, okay. Now I've been kind of anticipating the return of Rumble here with oh, is it actually a lock-in on Rumble? Because there's
locked in Rumble and locked in Vi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been anticipating the return of Rumble ever since we've been talking about the increase of AP top laners that Fnatic have been trying to bring back. Also, the decline somewhat of the tank top laners allows you to have a champion like Rumble who has less survivability in lane, good farming though, good damage in that lane as well, and really having a manaless champion up there as well is another benefit to the team because it just allows them to not have to rely too much on laning with regards to your mana cost. You can sit up there and not have to worry about going back or being harassed because you're low on mana.
Final lock-in is going to be Yasuo. They were hovering over Mundo for a little while, but looking for the Yasuo, and now that we've had Lulu, that's probably going to be in the mid lane, so Yasuo, well, JWoww picking up, and he knows that Rumble's there, and JWoww likes his damaged top laners.
Yeah, JWoww loves his damaged top laners. We even saw JWoww attempting the Yasuo top in the Face It Challenger Invitational a couple of weeks back. Didn't end up going too well in that situation because he was going up against a tank top laner, so it was very difficult into the mid game and the end of the laning phase to deal damage. This time, however, Rumble a little bit more susceptible, as Rumble really wants to build a lot of damage, doesn't want to build tank, so kind of goes haunting guys rather than any kind of armor items first.
If I remember correctly back to the Face It Invitational, JWoww picked up Yasuo and also Lissandra top lane, and that was sometimes before the top laner had even picked, just because he wanted a damaged top laner, or maybe it fitted in their composition, and it just didn't really work out that well. But by picking Yasuo last pick, and the fact that they already picked a mid laner, means that they could also synergize Yasuo's ultimate with the mid laner's ultimate, that being Lulu's Wild Growth, which is an interaction we rarely see, because we almost never see a Yasuo top lane.
It is, and the knock-up from Lulu is significant in size. It's not quite like Trundle's Pillar, where it's a very small knock-up. Lulu's Wild Growth has a very large area when you consider the surface area of champions, and that means you can get multiple people in those Yasuo knock-ups as well. So you're looking for the combination ultimate, which is going to deal significant damage to multiple members of the team and can really set a team fight up. And once that knock-up's gone off, then you have the Solar Flare as well if it hasn't already been used to engage the fight. So there's so many ways here of locking down TFS in these team fights that Gamers2 have a very CC heavy composition.
And there's so many ways of Gamers2 getting themselves into a team fight. There's a Lulu Wild Growth, there's Mordin using that Lee Sin's picking potential to get one person out of the team fight immediately, Leona's Solar Flare or Zenith Blade coming in, and any of these ways of getting into the fight will allow Yasuo to use his ultimate on top of that to increase his damage in the rest of the team fight. But we haven't really touched too much on the TheFoxSound composition, and while they have very strong lanes, they have a very strong early and mid game. How strong is their team fight going to be?
They've got a lot of heal and a fair amount of disengage when you look at Gragas, Alistar, and Rumble even in certain circumstances, because of course there's a heavy slow comes down from the Equalizer if you really do have to zone people out, if you're in that much danger to throw it down as a zoning tool. So the TheFoxSound have got a good amount of disengage, just in their kit in general. Even Stand Aside goes to that point, and good catching potential with Vi as well. That Sultan Battery is good at picking one member off. From there you can combo into the rest of their crowd control as well. So if Draven can get rolling in this game, if Rumble can get a lot of damage as well, I expect them to be able to contend fairly well in these team fights. It's just all about keeping Draven safe and Rumble being able to output damage.
So we know that Yasuo's ultimate has interactions with like Tristana Jump and Kha'Zix's Jump, in which he can use his ultimate onto them. I wonder if displacement abilities like Alistar's Headbutt will allow him to use it on Alistar.
If Alistar's Headbutt allows...
if Alistar is in flight. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was just trying to check that. I'm not too sure on that one. That's something that we'd have to look and see in the game. As again, Yasuo is such a new champion, we haven't seen all of the interactions that are possible, and sometimes you just see his ult come out of nowhere and you're like, oh, what did that combo off? And turns out it was a Riven using a third Q. But it's certainly one of the things to look forward to in this game. And the reason we've stayed in Champion Select for this long, normally would have thrown it to a break, is we're trying to ensure that we can get into the game for you guys. So we didn't want to just kind of leave for a break and not give you an update on what's going on here.
Yeah, and then come back and be like, well, we can't spectate, bye. And that's not how we wanted to go through this broadcast. However, We are now on the loading screen. Oh, we're hoping we can get into the loading screen. And at the moment, it doesn't look... Oh! I think we're on the loading screen.
Production just shouted out that it might be working here. So
yeah,
maybe
I think we've got it.
A good thing. High fives going all around through production. So it looks like we're heading into game number 1 here between Gamers2 and TheFoxSound of the European Challenger Series number 19, powered by Esports Venture. And guys, if you are in chat, if you haven't got your bets in already, I'm not sure what the cutoff time is for it, but make sure you visit the Esports Venture website where you can bet on the weekly semi-finals and grand finals for the Challenger Series. So put !bet into chat, follow the link, you'll get a not a discount code, I keep wanting to say discount, you'll get a deposit bonus code of €5 plus 10% extra when you deposit over €20. So make sure you get that on the go. We're heading towards game number 1. I cannot wait for this. We're bringing you games.
I'm so happy we could get into this game, because I know some other tournaments had postponed the tournaments and not gone man mode like we do at Chaos TV and gone into the broadcast, and it's worked out for us.
Yes, we are in game. I've loaded up as well. So game number 1 here, TheFoxSound going up against Gamers2. This is a best of 5 for the grand finals. Let's get underway.
Okay, everyone is going to be fanning out as far as I know. There's an on the way ping, however, from among the members of Gamers2, so we might see some early aggression. I know Gamers2 played with our hearts and minds yesterday when they kind of all grouped up in that bottom river area and then just didn't do anything. But everyone's fanning out. I don't think we'll see anything too much in the early game here.
Yeah, that's typically what we normally see, is just everybody plays defensively, but there's a big difference in this game as we go through the laning phase, that normally we say top lane there's a lot of trading and then nothing really happens because both back off. Neither of these champions particularly can trade that well in lane. Yasuo, of course, will have his shield that will come back up and the scrap shield from Rumble, but once you take a significant amount of damage on these champions, you're not going to have the regeneration of a Mundo or the resistances of a Shyvana to really survive through that. So we may see another switch back in focus from our junglers, looking for early game top lane pressure, because both of these champions with a lead in lane will significantly affect the early game team fights and the rest of the mid game as well.
Both of these junglers have exceptional early game ganks once they've gotten those double buffs, and we may just see both of these junglers find themselves at top lane. But Morden and Santorin are actually starting on their upper jungle buffs, meaning they'll be in the bottom jungle and may look for a gank there first. But typically as a jungler, you just don't expect yourself to be able to gank top lane, because it's usually like a Mundo or a Shyvana, who maybe you can gank at level 3, but that's all you can do for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's something that junglers and top laners will be used to now, and it actually, there's Zykion checking into Dude, but that's not the one he wants to go aggressive on this early on. Dude is going to back away.
Get punched, Diode. And Zykion still aggressing. Is throwing down the Fists of Fury from Alistar. It's quite a big Alistar with that Inferno Alistar skin. And Diode is trading auto attacks, but Crazy Caps are going quite far forward, taking some damage in return. Pulverize goes down, Leona goes up.
That's going to happen so much in this game, and this is actually looking to be a very bloodthirsty game as well. You can see already heavy trading in the lanes in mid and bottom, and it's only a matter of time before we see that in the top lane as well, once all of the abilities become available. And I'm actually looking forward to a bit of a different paced game here as well, because some of the changes in team compositions here really make prolonging a game a little bit more difficult.
Both of these teams will want to go for engagements very quickly. They'll always want to be brawling, and Lee Sin and Vi basically get you into those fights even faster. They have very reliable, well, Vi has a reliable way of getting into a team fight, Lee Sin less so, but he can pick people out where necessarily another jungler wouldn't be able to, using that classic insect maneuver where you jump in with a ward jump and kick someone backwards with Dragon's Rage. These junglers just progressing through their jungle. Morden is now level 3 and looks for his first gank in mid lane.
And this will be an important gank here. We've mentioned how Lulu doesn't particularly have any matchups that disfavor her, but Gragas is a champion that has a fair amount of survivability once you're through the early game. So we'll see how much the jungle can really affect that lane if they choose to go for it. Didn't really feel like the gank was on there, so Morden's going to head back to his wraiths. But again, we see top lane, that shield going up against the scrap shield. Looks like both top laners are pretty content right now to just continue their little harass game.
It appears that top lane right now, neither of these guys have enough damage to break through the initial shield, that being the scrap shield and also the passive shield from JWoww. But after a couple levels, when they start ramping up in damage, they'll make some meaningful damage happen, and you can see at least Darius is getting somewhat chipped down. And I'm a little surprised neither of the junglers have really done anything in top lane. Santorin might be heading all the way around the side, or heading all the way around the side onto Ocelot. Jump force, there's the flash, another flash into the Vault Break. This should surely be first blood, but both of these guys are backed on off. It's going to be first blood. That was calculated down to the wire.
It was, but you could also see TFS second guessing themselves.
Yeah.
Santorin kind of turned around thinking, is that shield going to wear off? Really nice knowledge of the ignite timer there, because so many times you see somebody escape on that very last little bit of health, but that's an important first blood here. Gragas is already ahead in CS in that lane, and we've talked about how if Lulu's ahead, she still needs the rest of her lanes to be ahead as well, and TFS are outputting a lot of pressure. They have 1,000 gold lead so far, and that's all from lane pressure that they're exerting. Bottom lane is ahead, mid lane is ahead, and it's almost a matter of time until Xerius can really start outputting damage to contend with Yasuo in top.
A bot lane is ahead from no jungle pressure either. They're just out trading them, and Crazy Caps, there's a fantastic standard side coming out ahead, but will bring Bull out of that fight. And we can see why TFS are coming out ahead in these trades, but Crazy Cap doesn't get the favor of this one.
Yeah, they've got sustain in that lane. That's one of the biggest parts of this Alistar Zenith play, doesn't quite hit there. But the heal from Alistar means that they're going to be able to trade more frequently. Gamers2 have to pick their fights a little bit better as well, because once they lose health here, once they're out of pots as well, they can't afford to trade anymore because Leona offers no sustain to that lane.
Again, Porthrice comes down, disrupting Diode's attempts, and also the standard side, which causes Leona to go multiple directions in the air.
Yeah, it's saving Headbutt as well. No need to go all in on that one because Alistar is fairly mana intensive for the early game. There is a fair amount of mana being used in those counter engages. They just need to be careful that they don't overexpend too much in the way of abilities. And back up to this top lane, you can see now we're starting to see abilities chunking through shields. JWoww is just above 2/3 of his health. Xerius has taken a little bit as well, and really we're just going to see a little bit more focus up there as this game continues.
Warden is just continuing for his jungle, same as Santorin really. The junglers, after that initial gank from Vi, haven't done too much else, but now that level 6 has been picked up by Vi, this might be the time that she can find a gank somewhere else. Lee Sin is probably going to play more of the counter ganking route, and Santorin will find Morden. Morden doesn't have his level 6, and Santorin will easily out-trade him. A sword and battery comes up, and the explosive cats comes across. The third proc of denting blows picks up another kill.
And this is something that we've seen out of the TheFoxSound for the last couple of days, and it's not surprising in the sense that we didn't think it was possible from them, but up until now, they've been fairly inconsistent. They've had great performances one week and then kind of faltered the next, but they're actually the top-ranked team on the Challenger ladder as of, I think it was about 4 o'clock today that I checked. They were top on the Challenger rank, so they will already be looking towards their Coke League spot, and you have to wonder, being in the finals here, already being ahead, they're looking pretty strong here, and maybe are potentially one of the teams that could break through in this second split of the Coke League.
The TheFoxSound won Challenger Series 17 and were taken down by NIP in Challenger Series 18, I believe. So we'll see if they can actually win 2 Challenger Series at all, because I think they'll be the 3rd team who has ever been able to do that in the first place. Porthrice comes down. They're knocked into the tower this time and disrupted with standard side. They will carry on the aggression, but Bull is there to well away at Crazy Caps.
Oh, there's the knock-up in the top lane as well. JWoww not quite able to turn the damage back on, but down in that bottom lane, you saw that engagement. Really nice balancing of crowd control to make sure that Dude took as much damage from the tower as possible, because Leona can't really regenerate that back very quickly, relying on really just that passive regen in lane. So and of course the Doran shield as well for when she takes attacks, but it's just, sorry, that's block damage, not regen. I'm getting my items confused, but nevertheless, that's going to be difficult to regen.
Bot lane coordination is also something that's quite difficult, and something that we saw being very fluid from the TheFoxSound right there, and we're questioning how consistent the TheFoxSound are going to be, and if they keep up maneuvers like that, then they're going to be very consistent.
Yeah, they are going to be very consistent indeed. Xerius is going to back off up in the top lane, 1900 gold on his person right now. I don't think JWoww wants him to head back, but You can see he already has a fair amount of damage in that lane. Here comes Vi into the bottom lane.
The flash pulverized headbutt comes across, and the Assault and Battery comes down. A perfect solar flare to Crazy Caps and Sunterin will result in 1 kill. Surely Diode will fall here. He's already flashed out. The Vault Breaker comes in. Morden has reacted to this guy. Zaichin gets hit up with the Sonic Wave into the Resonating Strike. Santorin has juked into the bush, but they still have that vision from the Tempest, and Bull picks up another kill.
And there's one of the problems with Alistar right now, is he's so mana intensive that after that initial engagement where they ended up losing Crazy Caps, where he lost a lot of health, they were forced to heal significant times over and over again, and Zaician ran really low on mana, and right then as Lee Sin comes into the fight, he had Pulverize and Headbutt available, but no mana to use either, so they ended up losing Santorin as well.
Ooh, Whirling Death comes across, hits more than twice. It won't be enough to take him down. And the extra life steal from Safeguard, plus the Smite, plus the Execute will bring him back up to HP. But still, the Whirling Death knew exactly where they were, and at least they have an approximate timer.
Godbro in this middle lane actually has a big advantage over Ocelot right now. He's over 20 CS ahead in lane, and we've already seen what happens when a Gragas can get fed. Gragas is one of the best champions right now for mid lane consistency, and even better when he's ahead, will have massive burst damage as the game goes on. But Ocelot needs to start getting a little bit more CS in lane, a little bit less harassed as well. I've seen him take a number of barrels, and as these fights begin to start in the mid game, that's where Ocelot's use is going to be, from the shielding, from the ultimate as well, but we're not quite at that point, so they need to get there, and Santorin's looking aggressive in the top.
Santorin is quite dead. The Q has landed, and he's just waiting for the execute, and doesn't follow up in time. He may just escape from this one. Darius didn't react in time because he just assumed he was dead. Now he isn't. Darius has come down and left by himself. I'm not sure if they can pick up the second kill, but Santorin completely caught unawares.
Godbro was looking to roam top there as well, but Santorin was very aggressive up in that top lane, and they didn't really have it warded either, so it's a little bit surprising to see him quite that aggressive this early on into the game. Crazy Caps down in the bottom lane has taken a lot of damage, so they have to be careful again that they're not forced into an engagement that they can't take here.
Diode and Bull are being very aggressive. Zaician's got the ultimate, so, well, Crazy Caps used his just a couple seconds ago and has it in 6 seconds. They've got to be very careful. If they get stunned up underneath the turret, had that stand aside gone the right way, they might be able to pick up that kill. Both of these AD carries are now in dangerous territory, with both the junglers, or both of the mid laners, heading into the bot lane. Ocelot is following down Godbro, and Morden is sticking around, but looks like everyone's going to back off. Whirling Death was used to clear out the mini wave.
That little trade there is going to offset some of the pressure that was being put out, but again, Crazy Caps has taken a lot of damage in these trades. They just have to be a bit careful that they're not taking too much. I believe they're going to back off here. Crazy Caps will look to pick up, it looks like maybe he hasn't quite got enough for the Bloodthirster, if my maths is correct, but looks like that's what he's aiming for. He's pretty close to it, so I think he might just wait this one if he doesn't want to go back yet.
As far as I know, it's 850, so he might just need a couple...
He was hovering at about 750 at the time, and I was thinking that's a lot of time to wait if you're going back.
He might have been looking to sell the Duran's Blade and thought, well, I can probably stay and I can probably get the next wave. But he would have been able to get the Bloodthirster immediately. Selling a Duran's Blade this early is fairly inefficient, though.
The thing about it is, even though he stayed, they haven't got experience from that either. They were out of experience range. It was kind of a lose-lose situation. He either heads back and waits at the shop for that gold, or waits for the wave to push in and waits an equal amount of time, but makes sure they don't take turret damage. So, I mean, neither of the options there were great, but I think they chose the better one, because now they can save this tower, they get the extra experience from this wave, and they're not looking to trade, but there's a trade in the top.
Both the junglers have come down, and the equalizer comes out. Morden is heading back to his turret. The electro harpoons are connecting. Safeguard will get him to the backline of those minions, and I was about to say the Ocelot was coming down, which is a bit different.
I thought you were going to say the Oscillizer then, as who knows, you're just merging Ocelot's name into ability names, but that should be a lot of damage on that top lane. Santorin going to zone Morden out a little bit, just to try and deny as much as they can here. But I don't think that turret's going to go down anytime soon, because not enough minions in that wave.
One might go down though, and I didn't know Vault Breaker could knock people over turrets, and now I know.
Again, one of those little interactions that sometimes you just don't quite catch until you see in a game.
Yeah, well, Morden is a bit shaken, but not too dead, and he's going to be picking up his red buff. And he'll be taking that for himself, won't be donating that to Yasuo. That's one of the other things. I mean, top laners typically don't take buffs, but because he's got a damaged top lane and he's not doing all too well, red buff might have helped him there.
Yeah, because of course it will proc from Steel Tempest. That's why Static Shiv is a great item as well. Not only does it give you the extra crit chance, but it used to even give you extra crit chance on the Static Shiv proc as well. Thankfully that has been changed though, however, in a number of patches. But that's why the Steel Tempest is so good at having items like Static Shiv, like Red Buff, because it will proc that on-hit effect.
Both of these bot laners have gone for fairly identical builds, which is to be expected. This time, Draven has opted more towards a mana potion over the extra health potions, but the bot laners take them for different reasons. I mean, Draven just wants the extra damage on his whirling axes, and Bull wants the extra damage on his culling, which is a different route to the Trinity Force first.
And you can see this top lane, the difference in this game is the fact that JWoww was able to pick Yasuo, which is basically a product of Xerius picking an AP top laner, is JWoww had two options. He can go a tank top laner and be very standard, or he can play his playstyle and take a damage top laner like Yasuo, because Rumble wants to build Haunting Guys into Rallies and not really build much armor unless he desperately needs a Zhonya's, and you can see he skipped out any armor apart from getting the extra health that he has, which will keep him alive. Solar Flare in the bottom lane.
Solar Flare connects onto Crazy Cap. Tired, pushed into the tower. Bull has been exhausted. Is cancelled the slow with Relentless Pursuit, but Morden is tanking up this tower, is chasing after Crazy Caps, and knocks him against the wall. Gets the execute down before the minion wave comes in line. And Gragas is heading down, however, but he's going to find a 3-man stack of Gamers2. That minion is doing work, keeping that vision. Dared gets hit up by both of the big skill shots from Gragas. Lulu was coming from the top side, and the Godbro has to be very careful he doesn't get collapsed upon. Doesn't look like the two interested in that because Dragon has just spawned.
Morden was a man on a mission there, knew exactly what he wanted, nothing was going to stop him. Crazy Caps getting knocked into that wall really just sealed his fate. I don't think Gamers2 are quite confident enough on taking this, and the more they delay, the longer time that Xerius has to get down, and this is an area where Equalizer is significant damage.
There's one of the ways into the team fight, and they pick up Godbro. He will drop very quickly with that last breath combo. Santorin is here along with Xerius. Will they commit another member to try and pick up this Dragon? Equalizer comes down, does a significant amount of damage, has really trapped them right here, and that's allowed everyone to come back into this fight. Gragas is not here, but the Whirling Death comes through. Clips Dio, doesn't get him on the second pass.
TFS didn't want to commit to that after either, because they knew the dragon had already gone, so fighting there, all that does is potentially give away more kills. They can switch focus up to this top lane, this middle lane, Flash Pulverize!
Flash Pulverize and the Vault Breaker comes out, but they're forced to flash out immediately. Morden and Ocelot are going back into this fight. Xerius taking some tower aggro. Morden doesn't quite find his cue. Ocelot picks up one kill. Crazy Caps looks like he's going to be the second. There it is with the last auto attack, and that was disastrous from TFS.
And after really good decision-making of not wanting to fight a dragon, they take a fight behind a turret, and that's somewhat surprising that they do that. That turret only has just over 800 health. That's easily tanked up with the number of members that they had there. They had minions as well. They would have taken that down and really got a tower, because Gamers2 wouldn't have committed to that fight. Ooh, explosive cask used, and that's one of the things in the last half a second of recalling. Even if you take damage, it won't prevent the recall, and it looked like he was just out of vision on that ward, so use the explosive cask thinking he'd been there. It would have killed Morden if he hadn't have been recalling in that invulnerability.
If it had disrupted the recall, that would have gotten the kill, which is pretty upsetting from Godbro. I mean, his ultimate compared to a lot of mid laners is fairly dispensable because it is so short on its cooldown, but back to that mid lane engagement, what I could only assume was Zaician wanted to tank up the turret because he was the one to flash into Pulverize, but he didn't have his ultimate. It only came off cooldown after both of them had died, and therefore they just lost the trade. I don't really know.
There's some sportsmanship for you there, guys. We've had a pause, because it's actually Gamers2 pausing the game, by the way. Ocelot noticed that Godbro had disconnected in the middle lane. TheFoxSound didn't know. They were like, oh, we didn't even know he's disconnected. And then a couple of seconds later, you see the disconnect. So Ocelot being a good sport here, noticing that there has been a disconnect happening. And I was like, why is Ocelot saying mid's disconnected? He's mid.
You're mid.
Got confused playing support on Lulu.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe he sees the Yasuo in the game and thinks he's top lane, but that isn't right. I didn't even notice Godbro is disconnected because I was looking at him while making that point. So
I thought he was just standing there waiting for minions to drop low in health so you could last hit them, but nevertheless, also up. Seemingly premonitions got the disconnect correct.
It's funny when teams don't even notice a member has disconnected on their TeamSpeak, and typically, especially if they're not a shot caller, which mids sometimes are, but mostly aren't, then it's just like, just carry on the game, it's fine.
Yeah, I was going to say, that tells you how much Godbro talks during non-team fight times, that he can just disconnect and nobody even realizes. So, yeah, a little bit funny on that one. It looks like he has reconnected, so just checking his connection, and we hopefully will be back into this game fairly shortly. But I'm really happy that we've had this change around in this game specifically with regards to some of the picks. I really love seeing Rumble back. That's a pick that I really think is a solid top laner. Never really dropped off, but just wasn't as good as other picks. So I'm really happy to see this change in meta hopefully start coming back in.
What I like is to see top laners who interact more. Or at least interact at all, really. Because now that Zarius is picking up the Rumble against Yasuo, these guys have been fighting it out in the top lane, compared to like a Mundo Shyvana lane, where Shyvana does poke away at Mundo, but most of the time nothing really happens. But a couple seconds before we jump back into the action, and these guys will carry on farming.
Yeah, that's the thing, is there was interaction with Mundo Shyvana, but the problem is it never would have resulted in a death.
Yeah.
So it's one of those funny things that apparently Morden now has a bug on his game. Okay. So Morden's got the bug where after a pause, sometimes your camera gets locked on the champion, and for anybody playing on locked camera mode, come to the world of scrolling around the map, because it's pretty useful knowing what's going on the map. So it's one of those things that he just has to relog. He will be back into this game very shortly.
You know, I know players who have locked camera and have played like over 2,000 games and have played their entire LoL career on locked camera.
That's impressive.
Yeah. But they don't know any different. And I guess in some ways it's good, but personally, like, I hold spacebar when I'm like in difficult situations, but I don't know how you could do locked camera all of the time.
Yeah, I actually tried playing without using spacebar either, just to try and like use the maneuverable camera. And when it got to team fights, I just ended up losing myself.
It's impossible.
It's like, where am I? Especially like playing Draven, trying to juggle axes while the camera's going crazy. Like, locked camera is required at times, but you definitely need it on like the hold to lock kind of mechanism.
Absolutely. The intensive champions like Draven, which we're seeing in this game from Crazy Caps, while he does do more damage, is very difficult to keep those spinning axes continuously alive. But he is 0-3-1, and I didn't realize the bot lane was going so terribly.
Yeah, it just seems to have been that they've been out-traded in this lane, and Draven's Crazy Caps, I believe, died before that dragon fight when Morden just dived him pretty hard, and then even though there's so much peel, they just weren't able to keep him alive, and that's a little bit of a problem, because Draven is a champion where using your adoration stacks, let's take a look, he's actually at 63 stacks by the looks of things, so he has quite a bit stacked up there that he just hasn't had access to, and if you're not getting kills, then it's difficult. This might be the first one.
Pulverize comes up, and the headbutt comes and knocks Diode backwards. Equalizer comes across. He's come all the way from top lane. Diode is surely going to fall. Indeed, he will. Bull walks all the way back to his turret and has no real way of escaping out of this one. The minion wave will disintegrate, but they have another one well on its way. Gragas has come up, cleared out that pink ward. Let's see what Morden can do top lane.
Yeah, Morden is looking to be aggressive up in the top, as it looks like Santorin's the only one to defend here. Gotta be careful of Steel Tempest.
Into the last breath, lands that Dragon Raid combo. Another way for him to get into this fight. Morden is taking so many tower shots. It's not going to be quite enough to finish him off, and Santorin will fall in the top lane. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, Bo is forced to flash out. Whirling Death comes through and he clips the minions.
That'll be a tower falling on each side of the map here, so even gold trade at that point. And Gamers2 have found themselves the lead here. They're about 1,500 gold up, so all of these trades seem to be going their way. They may be losing a member here or there, but ultimately they've picked up dragons. They've been able to control the map fairly well, but again, this is a very close game, very similar to what we saw out of Gamers2 and Departed. Thankfully, though, we've got a little bit more explosive mid-game team fights, and I'm looking forward as this boils up, so that we can get Rumble into these big fights a little bit more.
And there will be fight. It's going to happen because JWoww is 2-1-3. He doesn't really need to just sit at top lane and farm. He's got enough gold right now where he's well on his way to his core item build. He's almost got his Infinity Edge. He just needs probably another couple of minutes and another back, and he'll have that available to him.
Now, he actually has opted for the Negatron Cloak. Rather than finish the Infinity Edge, he just spent his gold on a defensive item. So, obviously trying to just contend a little bit with the Gragas, with the Rumble. Of course, there's quite a fair amount of AP coming from those solo lanes for TFS, so I think a defensive item is necessary at some point, and clearly JWoww just wants to make sure that as he heads into the fights, he has enough time to output his damage, rather than just getting instantly deleted by an explosive cask.
There is always the issue with Yasuo where you get those 2 damage items and then immediately after, while you do a lot of damage, you die very quickly as well. So he's maybe trying to get half of a defensive item to offset that inability to stay alive, and then in the next couple of team fights he'll be a little bit better. But he's got 1 minute to farm up some more gold until the dragon, which will most likely be the lightning rod for the next fight.
Yeah, it tends to be the lightning rod, and we talk about 1 minute left on that timer, and now it's just a race to see who can get the most amount of gold in the next 30 seconds to back off, to get a pick, to then set up for dragon just after you've got your itemization. A couple of significant, half items have been picked up. Needlessly large rod on both of the mid laners really is going to spike their damage up. That's going to allow them to output a fair amount of damage in these fights, and will also increase the amount that Ocelot is giving in shields and health. So even though that, yes, a needlessly large rod usually means damage, it also means utility for Gamers2, and that's a big part of their team fight.
There is a high likelihood of someone getting caught from either of these teams before we get into the fight, because both teams have very good picking potential. Santrin with the Assault and Battery, Godbro's ultimate can just instantly get someone out of the fight before it even starts, so can Zaitin with a flash pulverize into their headbutt, but at the same time so can Modern with his insect maneuver, so can Lulu, and all the instant single target CC they have from Gamers2.
It's one of those things that there's just a lot of crowd control on both. There's the solar flare.
And here it is. They get the stun onto Godbro, forces the flash out. Xerius is going to be tanking up. The ultimate from Bull. Culling has been used, but Godbro is dropped very low, and Happy Hour by itself won't be enough to keep him healthy. However, Zaitin might be as well. Ocelot landing another Glyph Lance just onto Alistair this time. Round Dragon drops before any fight happens at all.
Yeah, that was all just a big distraction, but this might be the fight.
Pulverize goes up and Breakwall Will comes out for Zaitin, and this is the initiate. JWoww gets exploded. That defensive item didn't do anything for him. Zaitin's also dropped. Both of the top lanes are taken out of this fight. Santrin backs off with Vault Breaker, and Godbro is still so low from that last engagement. They're trying desperately to get their red buff. Diode is coming in from the top side, seeing if he can get himself a pick, and Crazy Caps is doing significant damage to him. Godbro has gotten caught out in the bot lane against Ocelot. He'll be taken down, takes another tower shot. Ignite is not going to finish him off. And who picked up the red buff? It's going to be Santrin.
This is a lot of chase here, and they're now turning their attention onto a turret. I'm glad at least they will be able to get a turret from that, because that was heavy chase on just the picks there, and we've seen a switch of focus over to an objective-based game for a lot of teams. However, going down to the bottom lane really leaves Crazy Caps able to take a tower and equalize that tower trade for TFS. So a little bit of committing there from Gamers2 is actually going to cost them their mid turret.
Gamers2 are definitely getting the better of these trades. Morden lands the Q, doesn't go in. Okay. But Gamers2 are definitely coming out ahead in these trades. But it doesn't seem to make any difference on the pace of the game, or indeed how the starts of these team fights happen.
Yeah, they're certainly coming out ahead on the trades, but anytime you're giving the team who are behind any gold to try and catch up, just means the game is going to be held for a little bit longer. They're now going to have to work a little bit harder to make sure that they're getting their objectives, especially when it's the middle tower being down and top tower down on the side of Gamers2. That means that any kind of team fight that goes the way of TFS from here, they can have a little bit easier of a time trying to get a Baron if they feel like they've got the time after getting a pick or two.
I'm not sure if Yasuo had Wild Growth from him last time, but he has got the Equalize on him, and he's locked into it with the Assault and Battery. Santrin's got a couple seconds left on Vault Breaker. That will be enough to pick up that kill.
Ooh, that Negatron cloak isn't doing too much to defend against a perfectly placed equalizer there, and that's the kind of pick here that TFS are looking for, because now they've got a lot of wave clear from Gragas in the middle lane. Gamers2 are getting stalled out a little bit, and it's something we saw against Departed, where Gamers2 couldn't quite close the game as fast as they would have liked, and those games went 40+ minutes all the time.
It was very close, and in the second game that we didn't manage to see against Departed, Departed won the game, and that might have just been because Departed could stall it for so long. Gamers2 started to scale off in their picks because they like their early game champions, they like their mid game, and if you start stalling that out, which is a sensible move from a team who outscale Gamers2 composition, then you will start to lose the team fights the later you get on into the game.
Gamers2 are ahead though, so that's one thing that we've got to keep in mind, and I think one of the bits of feedback we get a lot is that we seem to harp on about one team a fair amount, but the thing is, when it's close games like this, both teams still are in a position to come out ahead. It just takes one team fight, and Gamers2 are a little bit more obviously ahead in this game, but they just need to make sure they're closing it out. That's one of the biggest parts of playing at this top level, is knowing how to close the game out with your team composition, and they need the good fights to be able to do that.
And often when a team is so far ahead, it's dependent on that team, whether they make a big play or they screw up, and the opposing team picks up on that mistake, and that's why we talk about it so much. But Ocelot, be picking away this blue buff, doesn't get stolen away by the TheFoxSound. The TheFoxSounds are roaming around as a group of 4. Draven's still in the bot lane though. He is farming away. If Morden gets this team fight or initiates it, they'll not be in good shape at all. Zaichin uses the Unbreakable Will. He's kind of caught out in nowhere, but the Solar Flare comes out. Morden will follow up, knocks a Godbro backwards into the last breath. Equalizer comes out. They pick up 1 kill in return. Ocelot is already on the back foot. The Whirling Death comes through and claims the next kill. The TheFoxSound in very good shape. Santrin coming in from around the side gets knocked up with the Steel Tempest Whirlwind.
This is the kind of fight where they have two options. They can now either switch over to Baron and maybe look at doing that, or take the middle lane turret. Middle lane is obviously the safer option to do here, and I think is the smarter one for TFS. They're catching back up in the gold lead. This will put them a little bit closer as well, because they don't really want to overextend, because that's a way that Gamers2 will be let off from having that bad team fight. But Gamers2 have got to be careful where they take these engagements. There's so much peel, so much damage out of TFS right now that they can't really afford a bad team fight like that again.
The TheFoxSounds are looking really good right now. They are still behind in gold, but only very slightly. But they were behind in gold for the last 10 minutes, and the fights have still been going fairly equal. And now that they're getting ahead when they're still behind, that just spells bad news for Gamers2.
There's a little bit of a reason, and if you'll excuse the pun, equalizers have been pretty good out of Xerius so far at making sure these team fights go in the way of TFS, and that's one of the key points about these mid laners, these top laners now that aren't just tanks, is there's a surprising amount more damage in team fights, and Zykion might be caught out here.
Santrin knocks them against the wall, at least keeps them at bay. The headbutt pulverize comes in, just kind of disrupts them for a couple seconds. Ocelot's shield will completely mitigate the explosive cast and push him in the right direction.
Yeah, TFS have got to be careful they're not getting over-aggressive here. They've had a couple of team fights go their way, but Gamers2 are very potent. You can see Yasuo now up to 251 farm, 3 kills as well, means he has a fair amount of damage and is well on his way to completing the Guardian Angel. As I say it, there it goes. Managed to get the gold to buy that. So now once he goes in, once he gets bursted down, which is going to happen pretty quickly, he'll come back. It's just a question of how many of his team will be alive. You have to feel with a Lulu there could be still quite a few members of Gamers2 once that Guardian Angel animation completes.
The TheFoxSound are being very bold about this. They pick up the dragon, so they are currently ahead. The Equalizer comes out, completely locks up that bottleneck. The Diad wants to get out. He'll have to walk through it and will be taken down. Ocelot jumps over the wall with Flash, and Gamers2 are still on the back foot. Zaichin wants to go back into this and doesn't need to. Gets detonated by Ocelot on the way out.
Yeah, that Hell Pix has a surprising amount of damage. It's not just a shield. Godbro gets kicked back into his team, looking for a re-engage.
As the wrong way, Morden. Explosive Cast once again comes out from Godbro, this time to disengage that fight, and now they come out on top.
And again, that fight doesn't go their way. The last breath wasn't even used because Ocelot was forced to use his ultimate defensively to keep himself alive, and that's one of the tools that they're looking for there. Equalizer zoning out that bottleneck as well just meant that not even Morden could get into that fight to give another way of Yasuo getting in, so JWoww had very limited impact on that team fight at all, and it's just a case of their team fight didn't go as their composition wants it to.
Now, I wonder if Morden, when he jumped in there and was trying to knock back Godbro, didn't have a water jump. Because I'm looking at him when he was in the death chamber and he didn't have any water left. Because that's why he kicked them backwards.
That would be interesting, because he's at 3 out of 3 wards placed on his Sightstone, so it kind of tells me that you might have a point here, because he doesn't have the trinket either, so not having that extra ward, so that could be a pretty big point in that team fight.
He just jumped in and then kicked him backwards, which is not the right way, or rather kicked him forwards back into his team. But either way, they'll get themselves another kill and put themselves in a pretty good place. They can't really siege any more turrets, and this game has hit a kind of lull in the action, but it won't be for too long, because both of these teams will want to carry on fighting. They don't really gain anything from continuing farming, apart from just keeping the game even.
We're at that point of stability here where both teams have really just started to realize that their aspects of their compositions are so good at one point in the match that they have to be careful in team fighting, because TFS have a better team fight, but Gamers2 have a better initiation when they can get it off, so Gamers2 are just a little bit wary now of actually initiating so that they don't team fight badly against TFS, who have a less specific requirement for their team fight.
Banshee's Veil is really finding its place in the current meta, especially against an engaged composition like this. If the Whirlwind comes across, then you can't engage onto Santorin, because that's only to just pop the Banshee's Veil. They have a decent way of clearing that one out. Zytian gets hit up with the Sonic Wave, not quite the target you want to be thrown back into your team, because he will just pulverize you. Ocelot coming through, and here comes the Solar Flare, only really hit Zytian. He will be the target of choice. Santorin has dived so deep into the back line, but that's a huge explosive cast landing onto 4. There's the ultimate from JWoww, will be taking down Santorin, but Mayfall in turn jumps over the wall, still has that Guardian Angel. Zytian cannot go one-on-one, actually drops him into the Guardian Angel by himself. Explosive cast is sitting on top of him, and meanwhile Crazy Caps is just caught out. Morden jumps over the wall using that ward, now has the ward jump available to him. Zytian is wailing away at Ocelot, surely picks up this. It's going to be the double kill. Bull backing on off. Ignite has come down. Everyone is so low from Gamers2, and Godbro and Zytius are just on the hunt for these last couple kills. Morden should be home and dry. He is Lee Sin. He's very maneuverable. 2 seconds left on Safeguard, and that is a team fight that actually went in the way of Gamers2.
And it would have gone in the way of TFS if Crazy Caps hadn't have been in a very questionable position. Now, he saw Gamers2 had such low health bars left that he figured he could clean it up. The problem was Godbro and Xerius were not anywhere near him there. They were dealing with JWoww, who was down in the Guardian Angel death chamber and the animation. That they were waiting around for JWoww to come back up, and Crazy Caps was 1v4ing against a load of champions that still had cooldowns available, and they just popped Crazy Caps. Had Crazy Caps not been quite there and had repositioned around the fight, they would have cleaned that up and heavily had a lead. Gamers2 have the advantage from that, but you can see already how much more damage are in these team fights than we've seen previously.
Santorin hanging around the Baron area. Okay, we'll be clearing out the ward. Morden lands the Q, or at least pops the Banshee's Veil. And Baron, 33 minutes into the game, it doesn't even feel like we've been casting for that long stress, but it is 33 minutes into the game, and that means Baron is a very real possibility.
It is a very real possibility. You have to think, though, that the single target damage of Gamers2 is just a little bit better when you take into account Yasuo and the amount of damage he'll deal now with that Infinity Edge, the Static Shiv as well, looking to build towards a Last Whisper. So they've got a considerable amount of damage to start doing Baron, but they need the position to do that. And that's one of the most difficult things when going up against a Rumble, is the Equalizer fits perfectly in the opening to the Baron pit and can zone so many members away that it's very difficult for Gamers2 to commit to a Baron without taking out multiple members of TFS.
Santorin needs really preferably to be the person in front, because if Xerius gets hit with a Sonic Wave and then gets knocked into the opposing team. That's not what they want as a start of a team fight. However, he's built fairly tanky. He's got the Rylai's Crystal Scepter, and on top of that, has picked up the Sunfire Cape and is looking towards a defensive item, most likely is a Spirit Visage. And Zaichin is warding up the opposing jungle, or at least warding the area around Baron as they gear up for this one. Gamers2 don't really know what to do.
Yeah, we're stuck in one of these situations. Dragon is coming up now, so the question is, does one team commit to Dragon? In which case, that's good timing to start looking at Baron, but there might be a fight. It looks like a disengage, though.
Dioud uses his ultimate defensively, and that's a Solar Flare going down, which is going to be on cooldown for a little while, but Godbro also used his own ultimate, and it didn't have a dramatic effect. It only landed on Dioud, so that's the reason why the TheFoxSound are backing off, and they may just well wait for both of those cooldowns to be back up.
Yeah, both cooldowns are almost the same length. I believe Leona's is a little bit longer, but it's the difference
basically
between having it at the start of a fight and then having it about 5 seconds later. So it wouldn't make that big a difference if they were just waiting for just the one of them. But yeah, we see the Dragon being taken down, and we were talking about how that may result in a commit to Baron. However, that little skirmish there means that neither team really wants to commit to Baron, so TFS are able to rotate around down to Dragon and take that out.
Just the fact that the TheFoxSound took the Dragon without Gamers2 doing anything at all about it shows Gamers2's mindset at the moment, which is we can't really fight them in open ground unless we hit them with a strong engage where everyone's grouped up. And while they have several ways of doing that, they have Mordant, they have Ocelot's ultimate coming in, and then Dioud's ultimate, all of which, or most of which, chain into the last breath, is a great way of getting into a team fight. But it has to land on 3 people to make that, make it worthwhile.
Yeah, they really require the stacking to really put out the amount of damage to make it an effective fight. However, one thing we've got to take a look at here is, even though there's been a significant amount of global gold for more towers going down in favor of TFS, the farm difference between the top laners actually is fairly significant. It's over 1,000 gold between the two, because you can see there's a big disparity in farm, and the longer this game goes on, you have to wonder how JWoww's effect is going to be on this game if he continues to farm at an advantage ahead of Xerius, because, I mean, theoretically, he has a lot more damage, but both top laners are dependent on how many people their ultimate hits, as you were saying.
That's kind of interesting. Baron actually pops the Banshee's Veil.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that, but I figured I'd throw that one over.
Dioud comes in, he's looking for this initiation, but Santorin goes for it first. Bull gets locked out of this team fight. The Wild Growth will be committed to him. Yasuo is still melting people in the back line, and he is taking so much damage from Crazy Caps, who gets locked up. There's the ultimate. Finally, the last breath is used, and it claims a couple of kills. Zaichin is going to be the next one to fall down, 3 for 1, and Gamers2 come out massively ahead.
The last breath landed on 3 members of TFS there who were all fairly low to begin with. It took down 2 and Crazy Caps barely gets away, but he's far too low to do anything about Gamers2. Equalizer is not available for Xerius either, as it was used, so there's not a lot really that can stop this push onto the inhibitor. I don't think they can go much further because Rumble just has too much clear out from the Flame Spitter, but that was a great fight, and that's what we're talking about. JWoww hits a big ultimate after the initial engage, and they managed to clean it up.
If the same thing happens again and the right members are taken out from Gamers2, they can just end the game. Their wave push and their tower push is ridiculous with the Lich Bane and basically 2 AD carries. Rumble was coming in, he doesn't have the equalizer, but he has a lot of damage available to him. Crazy Caps come out as well, and the Baron will be falling to Gamers2, actually going to Ocelot. Darius and Crazy Caps. This is a weird situation. 4 versus 2, and there's still sitting.
Equalizer's coming up.
Yeah, it is. Still sitting around that Baron area. Bull will be using that Relentless Pursuit to escape and gets out of that fight.
That was an important Glitter Lance, because that could have been a flash equalizer if it had needed the extra range. It has a significant range on it already, but the amount of damage now with the Andri's Torment, even an Abyssal Scepter finished here as well, the amount of damage from Xerius would have meant that TFS could instantly counter-push with everybody on the map, because that would have been at least 3 members of Gamers2 being incredibly low there and possibly even falling, so really important Glitter Lance to land. And both teams are playing with danger here, because the Crazy Caps very nearly took the 3rd proc from the Steel Tempest, which would have knocked him up. JWoww had Last Breath back on back available again, and nearly could have taken Crazy Caps out of that. So both teams have to be very careful here that they're not taking these big abilities.
The TheFoxSound, or indeed Gamers2, the team fights can swing either way in a heartbeat, and it just depends if during the team fight they still stack up, and they have to keep note of when Last Breath is available, because it will be available and if it's being used already, but Talon's just going to fall, and there's no point even trying to contest that, as the TheFoxSound just rotate into their next turret. So many Banshee's Veils up are in this game as well.
But to give you an idea of how quickly that comes up, 29 seconds is the cooldown. Yes, it does have the specific requirement of the knock-up, but 29 seconds on a big ultimate is nearly bordering on Lux kind of timers.
Yeah, it's not very long at all. How much cooldown reduction as well does he have? Very, very low. That's only 5%. So if he had invested in cooldown reduction, which is fairly difficult to invest in as a Yasuo, you could get that onto like 15 seconds cooldown.
That's incredible. I hadn't quite seen it in game being at this point, and when you look at the amount of knockups that are on the side of Gamers2, that's actually fairly consistent as well. They can just look for one knockup and then look to combo that off fairly frequently. Morden is just tanking up the turret for a couple of seconds as they wait for the minion wave, and Windwall is going to deny all of the wave clear for now.
Morden is role-playing Mundo at the moment, and so is Dayu. They are just so tanky with that shield from Ocelot, just allowing those resistances to do work, meaning that every time that shield is up from Ocelot, someone tanks the tower, they wear away at the turret for a little bit, and it gradually gets chunked down. They just need one Lichbane proc, and if they do that every single wave, it will eventually go down.
Yeah, I mean, to give you an idea of the shield now, it's giving over 600 on the shield to whoever is targeted. I think it's something like 240 base, and there's about 360 from the AP from Lulu here. So it's a significant shield that you're seeing in action. Windwall is going to deny a lot. Equalizer is going to zone, but not a lot of damage come from it yet. There's the solar flare.
Tower goes down. Zycius hits or gets hit with the solar flare, and they're trying to defend from the mid lane push from those super minions. Gamers2 take the opportunity to back on off. JWoww was the one who was kind of straggling behind. However, TheFoxSound lose another inhibitor. A dragon will probably be an easy objective, so will Red Buff.
That's all that they needed there from that. That was another inhibitor. The first one will come up, however, so it means that they have to stall this out a little bit longer. I'm looking for the Baron timer here, as it's not quite up on the 2 minutes. I have a feeling it's 38:30 is when it was taken. So yeah, it's due up fairly soon, just over 2 minutes. So it looks like they're going to be able to pressure through that bottom lane. Morden is not in that much trouble here because he had a Banshees and is very tanky, so normally when you see somebody get caught like Xerius is, this could re-engage.
He gets knocked back, Xenoblade comes in, and so does the rest of the ultimate. Xerius is still alive though. Zaician came into his aid, but he will also drop for that privilege. The ultimate comes into Godbro, Zhonya's comes out, and I don't think he's going anywhere. Indeed he doesn't. The ultimate came out and just knocked everyone aside, but the ultimate comes in from Draven, 3 members dead, and this is not looking good.
That'll be the third inhibitor of the game, at least, here. There's 55 seconds on Godbro, so Gamers2 may even switch focus around to that exposed middle inhibitor, and then potentially even look to close out the game. No super minions in the middle lane are available yet, but they will be very shortly. Flash comes forward.
And Crazy Caps is dead.
That is almost certainly going to be the game here. The shielding from Lulu, the Lichbane, and Yasuo is just going to be too much damage and too much survivability here for one member to deal with. That's a fast closeout on a close game here from Gamers2. Another 40-minute game, but this one was far more explosive.
Gamers2, that seems to be their playstyle. The Surrender Boats come in, Santorin goes for the last man standing attempt. But that was only the first game of this best of 5 between TheFoxSound and Gamers2, and if all of the games are like this, then we're in for an extremely fun